For episode 172 of the Lebanon podcast, a challenging but important topic to have with young people, the use of alcohol. An upcoming event held by Mothers Against Drunk Driving hosted at the library will provide pointers on how to have an intentional conversation with young people. In this episode, Denise Niblick previews pizza and prevention, the power of parents. Episode 172 of the Lebanon podcast starts now.
Welcome to the Lebanon podcast, highlighting all the great things happening in Lebanon, Indiana. Have an idea for an episode? Send an email to lebanon@lebanon.in.gov.
Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 172 of the Lebanon podcast. I'm Joe LePage, the City of Lebanon Community Development Director. With us this time around, we've got MADD Indiana Program Manager and Victim Advocate Denise Niblick. Niblick, thanks for being here on the pod. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me again.
We went back and forth, and you've been on the podcast before, sat down with a couple other folks, talking about a walk. This time around, we're talking about something a little bit different. It kind of cloaked in a date night, sort of. There's kid care involved. Anytime there's free kid care, you can bank that as a
There's
date.
a benefit there, right?
And you can bank that as a date night. But also some important information coming up on July 18th. This is Pizza and Prevention, put on by MADD. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? It's going to be located at the public library from 6 to 7 on the 18th.
Yeah, so I am a program manager, which means I really focus on prevention for preventing underage drinking and drug use. And that's throughout the entire state, but obviously living in Lebanon, I'm really, really excited to bring a class like Power of Parents here to just open it up to the community who might have the capacity to attend, having childcare, and hopefully us taking care of dinner for you. We have another nonprofit who has decided to cover pizza, water, and childcare so that hopefully that stress is just taken off your plate for one evening while we talk about 45 minutes about really how to have conversations with your children and to maybe model different behaviors and things like that to help aid in the fight against drunk driving. And
looking on the Facebook page, MADD Indiana, things that stuck out to me, the intentional conversation and also the dangers and consequences are things that kind of jumped off the page from what I saw that you guys posted. The overall theme, what are you hoping that parents walk away from and being able to then have that conversation with their kiddos after things are over with there?
I think my goal is always to empower parents and just to kind of give them maybe some conversation starters, the words to how to relate to their kids. Obviously, there's this crazy part where all of a sudden when your kids become teenagers, parents just aren't so smart anymore.
And they're not cool either.
No, not
sure.
cool.
No.
And they don't know what they're talking about. I will say from experience, I think you do get parents very intelligent again. Once they're out of that teen phase, all of a sudden you're really, they are a lot more appreciative of you. So it's coming down the way. But definitely, I'm really hoping to empower parents to start having conversations, even at a very young age. We're talking, kindergarten. The more you can start talking about this, the more it becomes familiar to them. I like to think about colleges. Okay, so stay with me a little bit on this one. But I grew up in a Purdue household. And I knew from a very, very young age that Purdue beats IU, right? That's the big,
according to some.
According to some.
There are different
not
schools
always
of thought
the case
in our state. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Please continue.
Yeah, but I think that that's been ingrained in me because that's something our family got to enjoy together. We would talk about it. We would do cheers together, things like that. And I've grown up my whole life being a Purdue fan. And a lot of times we don't have these conversations because they can be a little bit awkward, or maybe it wasn't modeled for you. Your parents maybe never talked to you about alcohol and the potential dangers of it. So I like to say, well, if you're talking about colleges and mascots their whole life and they show appreciation for that lifelong, then maybe we should talk about these really serious things and prepare them from an early life too. Because if we wait until the weekend before prom or until they're packing up to go to college to say, hey, make good choices, don't drink too much, you'll get sick, or, you'll get arrested and things like that. That's all of a sudden coming out of nowhere. There's no long-term connection for them. And that's what I'm really hoping when I talk to parents, that they can start to model, have these conversations frequently to be a safe place for their kids to talk to them.
And you mentioned about parents not, becoming uncool there for a little while, that window of where kiddos are going through puberty. They're invincible, that type of thing, where they don't feel like that finite day of life is so short and so fragile, and there's kind of that window there. So you want to get them early, before that, to be kind of ingrain some things in their memories and the memory banks, those core memories of being able to have that then when they do become somewhat more invincible as adolescents.
Sure, and it's never too late, right? We never want to say it's too late to have the conversation, but studies are showing the earlier you do, the more efficacy it has throughout their life. And I think that's why we are really starting to focus having programs like Power of Me, which is an elementary focused program for 4th and 5th graders, as well as Power of You, which is Power of Youth. And that's really a big portion of my job, is going into schools or talking to local community groups like Scouts, and just trying to teach them about how alcohol impacts your development. And I think that's an interesting method of talking to kids, right? Because we've heard a lot of scare tactics. I think even especially my generation and stuff, it was more of like, you're going to get in trouble, you'll get kicked off the team, and scare tactics, right? Those are real life consequences, and those should be in the conversation. But more importantly, let's empower kids to understand how much this will impact their actual development, their IQ, their capacity to pay attention, their, desire to their work ethic, right? Those things are impacted by cannabis and alcohol, especially being used under 21 before our brains are fully developed. So that's really, I think, the information we're trying to share. Kids feel more educated maybe than preached to.
And it's difficult because it is so much more mainstream now, the use of alcohol. Look at our downtown, and we see that on social media quite a bit with our community and others. It seems like their alcohol is a lot more mainstream. It's more tame. It's kind of the connotation that I feel like messaging and things that are out there. Is this helping to maybe kind of counteract a little bit of that, where it's your understanding that it is becoming more mainstream, but at the same time helping folks become maybe more informed as they see some of these things on a more regular basis, and it's becoming more and more cool?
Yeah, I think that it all comes down to education. I mean, obviously, I used to be a high school teacher. That's my background. So I think everything is rooted in education and building a strong foundation for understanding how things impact our bodies. Mothers Against Drunk Driving is not against alcohol. Cannabis obviously isn't legal in Indiana right now, but there are other substances you can buy at a gas station that will also impair your ability to operate a vehicle, or underage, impair your ability to fully develop maybe all of the way. And I think what's important about sharing that is I'm not here to demonize alcohol. I'm here to tell you that it impacts your ability to operate a vehicle if you're over the age of 21, and underage, it would impact your development. So I think doing as much as we can to just educate people is probably really what my goal is here.
And I'm guessing you get some information, some calls, some emails that do kind of feel like you guys are demonizing the use of alcohol, things like that, where people may not have exactly all the facts, or maybe putting some words in MADD's mouth as they kind of warn people about the dangers of different substances?
Yeah, I mean, alcohol is a huge part of our society. It's ingrained in a lot of our history, right? So people, I think, feel defensive when you try to explain to them that they shouldn't operate a vehicle, or they shouldn't allow their children to drink alcohol. That's a really large common misconception. That was kind of always the thing that I hear parents talk about is, well, they're going to do it anyway. And I'd rather them just drink at home so they're safe. And I hear that a lot. And, I might have at one point even have thought along those lines. But research shows that really educating and staying away completely underage, because your brain's not fully developed, is the way you want to go. Even casually drinking alcohol at a younger age, this is statistics even from other countries where it is legal, we see that tends to lead to more of an abuse of alcohol later, or binge drinking, or, like I said, problems with full development of their brain, because that's what it really impacts in your body, as well as potential liver concerns and other parts of your body.
Everyone, we're talking with Mothers Against Drunk Driving Indiana Program Manager and Victim Advocate Denise Niblick here on episode 172 of the Love in Lebanon podcast. And you mentioned stats and statistics, Denise. What are those kind of showing you as far as current trends, this problem of the overage or the underage rather consumption isn't going down anytime soon. How are the numbers? Are they up? They continuing to increase, that type of thing?
So I will get more in depth with this with our actual class
With
that we
your
take.
actual class happening
Yes.
on July 18th from 6 to 7 at the library
Yes,
that Thursday? Okay.
absolutely free, and you can register right there on the library website. They also have a social media post about it. That helps us with knowing how much pizza we should buy ahead of time locally. And I think when it comes to two statistics, one of the best I like to share is actually not as many kids are drinking as you think they are, or as I would have thought they are. Some have experimented, but as normally drinking, it's much lower than you would think it would be just throughout high school, throughout middle school, where it becomes more available sometimes to them because of maybe older siblings or just older people around that might try to buy it for them, things like that. What I really want to make people aware of are these situations they don't think of, because I hear a lot of times, my kid would never do that. And I hope that's true. And I hope that by educating them and talking to them, they don't feel the need to do that and experiment until they're over the age of 21. But what else is important is opening that line of communication to talk about what are the signs of impairment. And that's what I talk to students about so that they can see and spot somebody who's impaired and never get in the car with them. One really common scenario that we don't think about a lot is babysitting. You've got somebody who's babysitting and the parents have maybe had a date night, maybe they've gone out, maybe they don't share the same principles and have had a little bit more to drink. If your child knows the signs of impairment, instead of giving them a ride back home, they can say, you know what? I'm going to call mom or dad, whomever, to come pick me up. They're already on their way. So don't worry about it. I don't need you to drive me, because that's going to be really, really important. Even if they happen to be at a party and they decide not to drink, if they have a friend who has been, if they can see the signs of impairment, they know who to call. They know that they're safe calling you, right? Like you're a trusted adult, trusted guardian to say, hey, I've got myself in a bit of a pickle, and that you're not going to be mad. Instead, you're going to be supportive, right? Because those situations may happen, and we want them to be safe and to 100% never get into a car with somebody who's impaired.
And if we can kind of personalize this a bit, you're so passionate about this because of how this whole topic that we're talking about has impacted your life. Do you mind sharing why it is so important to you and why you're such an advocate in this cause?
Yeah, absolutely. I really changed my whole career. The reason I'm even living in Lebanon, Indiana, actually started with tragedy. I actually was living in Kentucky. I'm from Lafayette, Indiana originally. And I lost my sister to an underage drunk and drugged driver right over in Avon in Hendricks County. She was killed April 6, 2016. And the underage drunk driver was 19 at the time, and it was a very high rate of speed, ran a red light and hit my sister. And unfortunately, she passed away from the injuries sustained at that crash. I really like to share and highlight the fact that he did have active amounts of cannabis in his system. So we call that polysubstance because he also had alcohol. Right. But his blood alcohol content was 0.02. Not 0.2, 0.02. And that's important to highlight because a lot of people, when we hear things in the news, we hear double, triple legal limit.
Yeah.
But the truth is, impairment begins at the first drink. And that's when we really need to be aware that, at 0.08, that might be the federal law or state law for what it would be considered over 21. You're impaired before that. That's actually where muscle coordination becomes poor at 0.08, not just impacted. And, losing my sister, she was 26, I was 24, my only sibling, has completely changed. I would say it becomes tangent to every decision I make in my life. I obviously want to share about her because she's an incredible person. And I think that if we can learn from tragedy and prevent this from happening to somebody else, I don't want a 19-year-old to go to jail. Right. I want them to be a member of society. I want them to be helping our community. That's a selfish dream, right? I want them to help me, especially as I get older. And, I think that knowing how this will impact the rest of your life and the consequences this can have, that someone has to wake up every day knowing that their decision killed somebody. And that has impacted multiple generations. My children, my daughter's name is Lisa. And
same as your sister.
Same as my sister. Yep. Lisa Stree was my sister. And, my daughters never got to meet their aunt. Yeah. They know Aunt Lisa as their angel, but it's incredibly personal. And I think this tends to be a situation that unless you've been personally impacted, sometimes you think it could never happen to you. But drunk driving, underage drinking, anyone is in trouble. If someone decides to get behind the wheel while they're impaired, nobody is safe. People run into houses, to buses, to pedestrians, to other cars. I mean, we've all heard that in the news, right? So I think that's really the important message to get out, is that it's a selfish act. We need to make sure that we're educated to not do that and to keep our community safe. And
I appreciate you sharing. I mean, that's deeply personal. And I'm guessing that has helped you combat a lot of the, I'm air quoting, facts or the things that people might throw at you that I'm resistant to alcohol. I can have 9-10 drinks and I'm okay, that type of thing. Any of those things that can be used to combat maybe the message that you're putting out there is something that you can come up with, that a real tangible, I actually lost a sibling because of this. And let me tell you all about that before you give me your facts and figures. Let me show you something that really happened as well.
It feels like I kind of can't, in a personal way, get away from it in life. Whether, it
well,
is
not
common.
Demonizing alcohol, like you talked about earlier, not, saying don't, but helping to educate everybody about.
Yeah, and certainly I am social and see people who are deciding to drink. What I know by researching myself would be too much to be able to get behind the wheel, put you in a bit of a pickle to have that conversation. But at the end of the day, I truly believe it's always saving a life to just educate someone. If they're receptive or not, you can't control that. But you do the best you can in a nice, soft way. And I think always relating it back to that you're personally impacted, people tend to be able to listen to that, because I think everyone can feel a little bit as soon as they hear your loss. They realize that's huge. Everyone understands loss to some capacity. And doing whatever we can to share with our friends and promote positive peer pressure of saying that we don't have to drink this much, and educating ourselves as far as what the true statistics are for drinking and how alcohol really impacts you. Water, coffee, big loaf of bread, unfortunately, not going to sober you up. Like, none of those things can make you sober faster.
I'm going to drive with the window down, so the air is going to help.
Yeah,
all those things you've heard before.
Those are things I heard in college, like not too long ago. And the truth is, the only thing that can make you sober is time, and it's more time than I think the average person would assume it is. And it's a very defined calculation for once your blood is at a certain level, how many drinks it takes your blood volume to get to that can differ slightly, right? Based on how much blood volume, how large, small physique you have. But at the end of the day, when you're at that blood alcohol of 0.08, your liver can only process as much as anyone else over the age of 21, a certain amount of alcohol at a time to become sober. And you would also argue that after drinking, you also might be more tired. So there's drowsy driving, right? Let alone the distractions that we have this day and age, phones, screens, whatever it might be. Let's just keep our roads safe to whatever way that we can. And really it comes down to respecting a car and a vehicle and the power that you yield when you drive a vehicle.
And the respect for fellow man as well, not putting your life at risk or people in your vehicle, but others as well.
And that might be a quick conversation for somebody to realize, like, wow, I've literally done this my whole life. I've decided to drink and drive 2 miles down the road to somebody else's house with an open 6-pack, and that's how I grew up, and that's how I've done it. And maybe it takes one conversation for someone to realize, you know what, that's modeling something that I don't want to for my kids. And, it might even be when you decide to go out to eat and say, I'm going to go ahead and have an adult beverage, right? And I'm going to tell my kids, you know what, mom decided to have an adult beverage. Dad's going to go ahead and make sure he drives home to keep us safe. That's modeling. That's how we tangibly explain to our kids, this is how I want you to approach these situations in your future.
Very, very wise. And so bringing it full circle, Denise, here on episode 172, everybody. So Pizza and Prevention coming up on July 18th. That is specifically for moms and dads to be able to interact
caregivers.
Caregivers to be able to interact with young people to, hey, these are ideas and conversations that we can have because we are less cool as they get older, yada, yada, all those things. So being able to do that, going on to the Lebanon Public Library link and being able to register there. Everybody, we'll put the link in the body of the podcast here and also share it when we have the episode that airs on social media platforms. But if you're someone that's listening to this, wants those facts and figures, they want to be able to delve deeper into some of the things you're talking about, Denise, to be able to have themselves get the information they need to be armed to be able to have those conversations? Can they go to the MADD Indiana site? Are there stats there, some talking points, some FAQs, all those things that would help educate?
Yeah, and anyone that comes to the class, you're going to leave with a booklet that has a lot more in-depth than I can do, in the short time that I'll be able to speak to you. But that booklet's actually available electronically as well. So you can go just Google Power of Parents, MADD, Power of Parents, and it will pop right up so that you can see all of the kind of virtual library of different resources so that you're empowered to know the statistics, the facts, and conversation starters with your kids.
And again, everybody, that's coming up on Thursday, July 18th, 6 p.m., 7 p.m., Lebanon Public Library. The childcare, the pizza, water will be provided. I almost
water's always a safe one.
Wanted to go tongue in cheek with root beer, but no, it's water is provided there. But being able to register to allow them a heads up is beneficial. But Denise, thanks for educating us and being willing to chat more about a sensitive topic, and one that is a lot of times kind of swept under the rug or dismissed probably quicker than it should be, obviously.
Well, I'm so appreciative of you having me here today and just be able to talk about the class. And if you're not able to come into the class and you'd really like to support MADD, then you can always come to our walk September 21st at Memorial Park. It's our second year holding it in Lebanon. I really, really love that we have an all-inclusive playground. Really, it's a great time to come and support families who have been impacted by drunk and drug driving and share awareness. So I'm really, really glad to keep that local. I do love Lebanon.
That should be a hashtag or something.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Well, we're glad to have you guys here in town, and we really appreciate you being here to be able to join us. And thank you, everybody, for listening to episode 172 of the Love in Lebanon podcast. More episodes are coming your way soon. Take care.